Arrested last night. He's been charged with running a drug house and providing meth to a man who survived an overdose last week. 2 other men have previously died of similar overdoses in
At exactly 5:42 a.m., under the gray dawn of West Hollywood, federal agents from the FBI and DEA moved silently along Laurel Avenue. Their target was not a foreign trafficker or an anonymous dealer. It was Ed Buck, a 65-year-old political donor who had contributed more than $16,000 to Democratic campaigns over the last decade, when agents forced open the steel door. The quiet inside was replaced by the hum of flashlights and radios. 2 unresponsive men lay inside the living room, surrounded by traces of chemical residue and glass vials. Medics confirmed no pulse nearby, on a marble counter. Investigators found 112 grams of crystalline substance stored in labeled bags, several syringes, and a ledger containing coded transactions. On the wall hung photographs of Buck smiling beside state officials. The apartment, once a symbol of wealth and influence, now stood as a crime scene under federal control. The question now is this: when power and crime share the same table, can justice still stand? Comment 1 if you believe no one stands above the law. Comment 2 if you believe power always finds a way to hide its sins. Do not leave, because the next part will show how, when power is shielded by reputation, corruption can grow from within the very heart of the system. For almost 2 years before the arrest, the name Ed Buck circulated quietly inside interagency files marked sensitive. What began as an overdose report from West Hollywood police in 2017 had grown into a multi-layered investigation involving the DEA, FBI, and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. The first 2 victims found inside Buck's apartment had been written off as isolated tragedies. But to narcotics agents, the pattern was too consistent to ignore. The first clue came from a seized phone belonging to one of the victims. In its deleted messages, investigators recovered encrypted exchanges referencing sessions, mix ratios, and donations. Cross-analysis linked those timestamps to bank transfers made from Buck's personal accounts. The sums, ranging from $2,000 to $5,000 per session, were disguised as campaign consulting fees. That discovery triggered the federal inquiry. Within months, the DEA's Los Angeles Field Division formed a covert unit called Task Force 9A. Composed of cybercrime analysts and undercover agents, their objective was simple: map every contact, every payment, every shipment. But Ed Buck was no street-level dealer. His connections extended deep into political circles, philanthropic networks, and legitimate business fronts that masked illicit logistics. By mid-2018, surveillance identified a black Cadillac Escalade that visited Buck's residence every 3rd night. The driver was later identified as Marco El Pájaro Gomez, a mid-tier distributor connected to the Sinaloa cartel's western corridor. Gomez had entered the U.S. legally through Arizona and operated under the cover of a private security firm. His movements across state lines matched suspicious shipments recorded by Customs and Border Protection in El Paso and San Diego. Shipments labeled as medical isotopes, but containing precursors used for synthetic stimulants, every week. The investigation grew riskier. Agents who approached too close reported intimidation, vehicles tailing them through Los Angeles traffic, or anonymous threats sent to their families. A DEA officer was nearly rammed off Interstate 10 one night after attending a debrief. The warning was clear: someone powerful was protecting Buck. By February 2019, Task Force 9A obtained a court-approved wiretap on Buck's encrypted messaging platform. What they intercepted confirmed their fears. Buck was not merely consuming narcotics. He was coordinating a network of supply and redistribution linked to Mexico-based operatives and domestic couriers operating in Nevada, Texas, and New Mexico. He had become an intermediary, using his wealth and influence to funnel money, transport chemicals, and recruit individuals vulnerable to addiction as couriers under the guise of personal assistance. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A low-level contact in Phoenix, desperate for leniency, offered to cooperate. He revealed that Buck's apartment served as a distribution node where shipments were divided, diluted, and redirected. But his most shocking statement was this: Buck had ties to a shell company registered in Tucson that laundered over $3.4 million through political action committees. Federal auditors traced those funds and found overlapping financial signatures between Buck's donations and logistics firms flagged by the FBI's El Paso Intelligence Center for suspected cartel laundering. The dots began to connect. On August 28th at 3 to 12 a.m., an undercover agent posing as a contract assassin met with Gomez in a motel parking lot outside Phoenix. The agent was wired, and the conversation recorded. Gomez bragged about having a boss in California who could get anything through customs with one phone call. That was enough. 2 days later, a sealed warrant was signed by the Central District Court. The operation, codenamed Silver Vein, unfolded over 48 hours. Teams from the DEA, FBI, and Homeland Security investigations coordinated simultaneous raids across 3 states. Agents stormed Buck's West Hollywood apartment once more. This time, prepared for resistance. They found over 160 grams of methamphetamine, multiple digital ledgers, and encrypted hard drives detailing a supply chain that spanned 5 states and involved over 40 individuals. But what shocked even veteran agents was not the amount of narcotics. It was the evidence of political collusion. Inside Buck's safe, investigators discovered correspondence with an intermediary linked to a major campaign finance committee and encrypted memos detailing protection payments to local officials. The case had evolved beyond substance trafficking. It had become a story about power, influence, and the machinery that allowed crime to breathe within legitimacy. And yet, the biggest secret was still buried beneath it all. A connection that would surface in the next phase. One that tied Buck's empire directly to a cartel executive known only as El Arquitecto, when federal agents began decoding the hard drives seized from Ed Buck's apartment. What emerged was not the behavior of a desperate addict. It was the architecture of an empire, across several encrypted folders. Investigators uncovered transaction ledgers, delivery schedules, and coded messages connecting Buck directly to La Union del Sol, a Sinaloa-affiliated network specializing in synthetic stimulants. Within the structure, Buck was labeled as El Benefactor, the financier responsible for the U.S. West Coast's political protection and distribution operations. The scope stunned even veteran narcotics agents. Over $1.6 million in campaign donations traced back to shell accounts tied to the cartel. Each contribution appeared legitimate, routed through political action committees or charitable fronts. But beneath the paperwork, every dollar was matched by a shipment, every endorsement by a consignment. Through Buck's network, shipments of methamphetamine and fentanyl flowed north through California, Nevada, and Arizona, while proceeds moved south via cryptocurrency wallets and offshore transfers into accounts in Sinaloa, Tijuana, and Sonora. His Hollywood residence wasn't a simple drug den. It was a command node. Surveillance footage retrieved from his security system revealed nightly visitors, men in suits, campaign aides, and lobbyists who left carrying sealed envelopes or small cases. Some stayed only minutes, others hours. None were random. At the core of Buck's operation was the illusion of legitimacy. Using his long-standing position as a Democratic donor, Buck infiltrated both policy circles and social advocacy groups, sponsoring recovery programs that secretly funneled narcotics to users under the guise of harm reduction. What looked like philanthropy was distribution. What looked like compassion was control. According to DA analysis, Buck's personal network moved an estimated 480 pounds of methamphetamine and 60 pounds of fentanyl over a 3-year period. Quantities capable of causing over 2.5 million fatal overdoses. The logistics were flawless. Shipments entered through Long Beach and San Pedro ports, labeled as household cleaning supplies or pharmaceutical samples. From there, they traveled under legitimate trucking manifests across interstates I-10 and I-40. A team of couriers, most of them recruited from recovery centers Buck-funded, handled the distribution. Many of them didn't know who they truly worked for. Federal records later revealed that at least 6 local officials received financial retainers from organizations linked to Buck. These payments, presented as campaign support or social grants, effectively guaranteed safe corridors for shipments. But while Buck built his empire on connections and money, the operational control belonged elsewhere to a figure known in cartel intelligence files as El Arquitecto, a chemical engineer turned cartel strategist believed to be operating from Guadalajara. His formula for fentanyl production had revolutionized the cartel's efficiency, turning laboratories the size of a garage into factories capable of producing tons each month. Buck's role was logistics and protection. El Arquitecto's role was production. Together, they bridged the divide between power and poison. The confrontation that ended it all began at dawn on October 3rd, under the code name Operation Broken Halo. 38 agents from FBI, DEA, and Homeland Security investigations executed simultaneous raids in Los Angeles, Tucson, and Las Vegas at exactly 5:37 a.m. A tactical convoy rolled into Buck's gated neighborhood. The quiet street erupted with the sound of breaching charges. Agents entered from 3 sides. Buck was inside his study. Surrounded by open laptops and handwritten ledgers, he didn't resist. He looked tired, almost relieved, inside his home. Agents recovered over $25,000 in cash, 8 handguns, and evidence linking him to 10 confirmed overdose cases across 4 states. More chilling were the encrypted communications found in a hidden compartment. Detailed plans for an expansion route stretching eastward to Atlanta and Chicago, simultaneously. Across the border near Nogales, Mexico, Mexican federal police, working with DEA intel, raided a rural property believed to be one of El Arquitecto's secondary labs. The facility contained over 2.8 tons of chemical precursors and a dozen workers under armed supervision. 3 were detained. 1 fled into the desert for nearly 5 hours. Coordination between the 2 countries unfolded in real time. When the final confirmation came, El Arquitecto was captured alive in Guadalajara. The command trailer in Los Angeles erupted in silence first, then applause. Years of pursuit had ended. But even in victory, the numbers were grim. 97 arrests, 1.2 tons of seized narcotics, and millions of dollars frozen in cartel-linked accounts. For the agents who had spent years tracing the poison's path, this wasn't closure, it was revelation. Because what they had uncovered wasn't just a criminal enterprise, it was a system. A web built on money, prestige, and silence. A structure that thrived not in alleys, but in offices, behind political donations and photo ops. As one senior agent said later, staring at the rows of evidence bags lined across the floor, this was never about drugs alone. This was about the moment power decided it no longer needed to hide. In the end, justice did not arrive with noise. It arrived through persistence. After 3 years of investigation, Ed Buck stood convicted on 12 federal counts, including narcotics distribution, money laundering, and conspiracy with international traffickers. He was sentenced to 60 years in federal prison. The case dismantled one of the most politically protected drug networks in California, leading to 97 arrests, 43 properties seized, and over $54 million in frozen assets. But beyond the courtroom, something more powerful began to rebuild. The the public's faith that justice still matters. Citizens watched as agents, prosecutors, and journalists refused to let the story die. Lawmakers introduced stronger transparency acts. Recovery programs for victims were funded by the very money once used to spread harm. For the first time in years, people saw proof that accountability could reach even the highest walls. Because justice is not a moment. It is endurance. It is the quiet insistence that no one, no title, no donation can stand above the law. And as dawn rose over Los Angeles the day the sentence was read, the city felt different. Not healed, not perfect, but aware. Power can corrupt. Yes, but courage can be corrected.